Welcome to the 2023 issues of sports. I am Emac Evan Makovsky, along with the Rude Dog, Rudy Reyes. Rude Dog, it's 2023. You got me to go back and bring Emac out of the closet. But look at your CG here. It says Rudy Reyes. It should say Rude Dog. I mean, come on. I'm using my nickname. What are you doing?
That's just too much to type. I got time for none of that. I got no time for it. The only time I have is called Correa time. Well, I don't mean Korean time. It's Correa time. As Correa decided to double flip, and now he's got a killer deal with the Minnesota Twins. And as I understand it, Emac, you correct me if I'm wrong, that he's got a pretty sweet deal. Two other teams he failed physicals for, and we're going to dive into all that, but ultimately ended up with the Minnesota Twins revisiting that family.
He's staying with the same team on option 3, but when you say he ended up with a pretty sweet deal, he finalized a 6-year, $200 million contract. Okay.
Ridiculous.
But that's ridiculous. But the Mets offered him 12 years, $315, and the Giants, the first team, offered him 13 years, $350 million. So it's a pretty sweet deal compared to the rest of us humanoids and what we earn.
A little bit.
As far as baseball funny money, he lost a lot.
Well, he did. You know, what's interesting is that Major League Baseball does not have a cap. Now, I know you sports enthusiasts out there and you bettors alike wondering, why not? Why is there not a cap on Major League Baseball? We don't have time to get into all that minutia, but I know this. Until there's a cap, you're going to see money being flung like Spanky stolen money out the window, because that's exactly what the other two teams, not naming the Mets and Giants, were going to do with Correa.
Well, let me, full disclosure, I'm a Mets fan, and I know Steve Cohen came out and said this is the final piece to the puzzle or whatever he said, and he announced it, and I thought to myself, this is a done deal. But he fails his Mets physical. The reason goes back, he's never had a leg injury in the major leagues. It goes back to an ankle injury that he never missed time because of an ankle injury in the major leagues. Right. But this goes back to 2014 ankle injury. And they're worried, basically, from my understanding, as he ages on a deal this long, about arthritis setting in the ankle. So before we did this show, I got a good piece of information because, when this happened and he signed with the Twins, I'm texting with my friends and I'm like, I just don't get it. The Mets, he failed the physical with the Giants, so they certainly had fair warning. Why are they throwing it up like we signed him? He's good, but he didn't pass his physical then with the Mets. And the Mets, meanwhile, Boris is going out and, peddling him to the Twins, which if you want to say it's shady, but I guess he's covering his client's butt. But Scott Miller made and this formerly of CBS, he now does a show on Sirius XM. He contributes to the New York Times. I called him when I was on in St. Louis. I used to interview him a lot. Great guy. And he told me that there's a distinction that I never knew, that if you read that a player has agreed to terms, that does not mean, and I never knew this, that does not mean that it's a done deal. That's where this little confusion lies, that the player still has to pass it. All agreed to terms means is that both sides are cool with the length of the contract and the amount of money. That's all. They've agreed to terms. But when I read agreed to terms, I think to myself, it's a done deal.
We see something different. We look at something different. And when we say agree, the word agree infers that everything's kosher. Everything on the paper is right. The dollar amount is right. And in factuality, that's exactly what it is. But the byline to that, or the gray area, if you will, is that he didn't completely agree. And the team didn't completely agree either, which is him being able to go out and search for other teams that are, I don't know, let's just say the timing is right. And for Minnesota, that's what it appears to be.
I still, you're taking the Twins' point of view here, and I guess that maybe they got into a deal with, where they get to keep a great player at quote a bargain price compared to what, even though it's $200 million. Yeah, it is true. I mean, sure, if you want to buy like baseball teams, yes, the difference between 350 and 200 million is probably significant, but $200 million is enough to probably float. I don't even know what I'm saying. So many people's lives. Okay. So he's got more money than he'll ever need. He's probably great grandkids are set for life. But in baseball terms, he lost. And then this goes to now, it's time to read the fine print going forward. When we read player X has agreed to terms, don't get out the pom-poms. That doesn't mean that your team has signed this all-star. In fact, it doesn't mean it's a done deal.
No, it truly doesn't mean a done deal. Matter of fact, he stated that one thing that he learned through the whole process, that doctors have difference of opinions. And they do. We go as humanoids to go to different doctors, and we have conversations about first opinions, second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinions. God help you can make it all to all those doctor's appointments to get the opinion. But what it seems to be is that they all told him, or not all, but the majority of them said, you know what, he's fine. And the doctor said it was fine, so I thought it was fine. No harm done.
Again, sorry to interrupt you, but I think he is fine. But
I think he's fine too.
But the worry is when you're paying somebody 9 figures on a double-digit year deal. And by the way, the Twins at the beginning of free agency, they saved money by what he did going to the Giants because they offered him 10 years, $285 million deal. Well, it's around where the current deal would end up if the option vests. But the point of the matter is that he didn't have loyalty to the Twins. He didn't have loyalty. No, he wanted to go to the Giants for 350. That didn't work out. Then he wanted to go to the Mets, or Boris got that as soon as, the questions started roaming around the Giants. And then he went back to the Twins. So, I mean, the Twins, in a way, unless he breaks down, they kind of lucked out.
Well, they kind of did. He has to reach certain thresholds.
Yes.
In order to not only come to terms with the deal, but to get whatever incentive monies are associated with that 11-year contract. Now, that's a lot of time. 11 years is almost like Andrew McCutchen after leaving the Pirates the first time around. Now he gets a second time around with the Pirates on a 1-year deal. Correa's got 11, so sextuple that and then some. Does Correa follow through with that deal? Do you see him deteriorating? And if he does, is it because of the ankle or because he's just an old man walking to first base on a walker?
Well, if to answer your question, scenario B, because he's an old man, then they made a silly deal, or they expect things from him up front. If the ankle deteriorates, well, I guess you can say that the Giants and the Mets doctors were right. And again, it doesn't mean, let's back this up. If the ankle deteriorates, okay, the Giants and Mets doctors are right. But I think what the doctors are saying is it could deteriorate. They're not saying necessarily it will deteriorate. And do you want to invest this kind of money with the possibility of it deteriorating as he ages?
Well, the possibility is there, obviously. I mean, we all get older. We do deteriorate in certain capacities. I mean, even people like LeBron James, who's fighting father time, and there are lots of other players out there fighting father time. Tom Brady fighting father time. His inevitability. I mean, he is inevitable. LeBron James is inevitable, as well as Carlos Correa.
What do you mean
Now,
by
he's not as old as them.
Wait, what do you mean by they're inevitable?
Their time playing sports is inevitable. Their ability to leave their respective sports and call it a day and say, you know what, I've made exuberant amount of money. Carlos Correa, not really on that plateau.
LeBron's a billionaire. Him and Tiger Woods are the two active athletes who are billionaires.
Correct.
So
top two, top three. So it stands to reason that Correa, if healthy, it's staying healthy. If the Giants and Mets doctors were wrong, has a possibility of making upwards amount of money and maybe even a contract extension after the club options have expired. Maybe. But we won't know that till the first, 4 years? If arthritis sets in, he's not going to be able to bat the way he used to. Now he's a pinch runner. What? Designated hitter. He's a DH in the NL. What? Why? His ankle deal fell through. No, nobody wants to hear that. Correa doesn't want to hear that. I don't even want to hear that.
Well,
he signed the big money, and he should play through that.
The reason people thought the Mets had to sign him, even after these questions, is because the direct quote from Steve Cohen to the press, to the New York Post, was, "This puts us over the top." So the owner's on record here of saying that we basically, he's telling the audience, that his fans, that he has contracted this player. But maybe that's the case of an inexperienced owner who's new at the game making a comment like that.
Right. No, it's a knee-jerk reaction for somebody who may not have enough experience as an owner. Most owners, let's face it, call it what it is. Most owners, and this goes to the NFL, this goes clearly Major League Baseball, fundamentally, they're out of touch with player personnel. They're out of touch with who these guys are, what they're really getting. Right now, all he knows is getting a name. You can look all the numbers that you want to. You can look at the OPS. You can look at the Platinum Glove, the Gold Glove. You can look at the World Series rings. All that's beautiful. Beautiful.
He was also part of the cheating scandal, by the way, with the Houston Astros.
Yes, he is. So he's got a strike against him. I call that a huge strike before he ever gets to bat, but that's another story for another show. But I will say this, is that when you look at Correa and you look at the situation that's he in, he has to play this out. Regardless of how it looks, he has to play this out. Owners need to become more involved. And I don't mean dive into the clubhouse and have lunch with the guys and, chew big league gum out of a pouch. No, what they need to do is familiarize themselves with who these guys really are. And the way that they do that is by digging their heels in, putting some spikes on the back of their boots and buckling up, because it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Well, before we wrap up this short little intro to 2023 podcast, I guess the moral of the story, just getting bigger than the player, is you need to read the fine print. And just because you see that a player has agreed with the team, that doesn't mean, have a party, have some cocktails, or if you don't drink, some cranberry juice, get out the balloons. No, hold the horses. Wait till his introductory press conference, which was never called by the Giants or the Mets.
That's correct, because they weren't ready. They weren't ready for him. He was ready for them.
Rude Dog, in and out. Podcast number 1 on the issues of sports. You look good, my man, to start 2023. We're going to socialize this, and you enjoy the NFL playoffs, and you have yourself a wonderful MLK Day weekend, holiday weekend. I'm sending my best to you.
Thank you very much. Hoping 2023 is even better for you. Better for the issues of sports. Of course, you're always going to have issues with sports, regardless of who you are or what you do. So everybody needs to stay tuned, stay focused, stay hungry, and have passion.
One last note, programming note. Rude Dog's going to be on Radio Row at the Super Bowl, so he has no choice but to find 20, 30 minutes to record an Issues of Sports from Radio Row at the Super Bowl in Arizona. So that's expected. That's part of your job here. Okay. Right?
Fair enough. The task
right?
has been given. I shall.
You're going to show up. I don't care.
Just that.
I don't care. I've been to 3 myself, so you're going to enjoy yourself. So for Rudy Rude Dog Reyes, I'm Evan Emack Makovsky. Thank you for listening to the Issues of Sports, and we will see you on the next episode.